Hey there fellow wargamers, it's your man, it's the Sentinel from across the tabletop. And today I wanted to break down the list I've been running on the channel lately, why I've decided to bring the Centurions back, give the Gladiator another run out, and also the two laser destroyers and the thinking behind it. So briefly, I have a couple of tournaments coming up and the whole channel was designed around me going to tournaments, showing off the list that I'm taking to the tournaments, the results of the tournaments, and how I've been doing. Now, I've been to a couple of tournaments that I've in April. I went one in March, one in April. I didn't get a chance to, not April, sorry, February and March. Haven't had a chance to one in April, the half term with the kids. It's been a little bit more trickier to try and square the time away for that. So unfortunately that's not going to happen. The first tournament I went to in February was the team tournament up in Nottingham. Not Nottingham, sorry, Northampton. I keep saying Nottingham and it's not, it's Northampton. And that was run by the ITC circuit in the UK. The team tournament guys. It was an incredible event. The train is using the standard TT combat stuff, which is incredible, really nicely done. Thematic across the tables in the sense that it was painted. It's better than their first attempt down in London GT. This is now the third event that I've taken part in with the guys, and they do an incredible job of setting up the event. The venues themselves are brilliant, spectacular, parking's amazing. So far so good. Not had any bad experiences at the events. The one criticism I would like to say is the team tournament itself. There was lots of different people or captains or teams that weren't 100% on how to do the pairings, and maybe a little video being played on a loop on a big screen somewhere just showing that pairing system might have been, I'm just overthinking it I suppose, but we'll move on. Great time, great guys. We had some success. We won 2 of our 5 games. We had 5 games, we won 2 of the games. We lost, or we won 3, lost 2, or did we lose? Whichever way it worked. We didn't compete at the level we were hoping to, but some of the players we took was their first time as a team tournament in that large event. Their first tournament since 6th or 7th edition, and it was more about trying to get the key team to have a cohesive effort to actually go to a team event in a large number of 5, because we've done a couple of 3s and 2s and doubles and things like that, but it was trying to get the team. Since obviously COVID had happened, since that's been a thing, this was trying to get the team to go out and do a team event, which we did successfully. And we had a successful event where everybody in the team at least won 1 game. I tried to go with the event and try to win all my games, and I lost my last game, so I was 4 game wins with a very similar list to what this is, to a 4 game win. And a loss to the Death Guard on the last game. So a little bit disappointing, the last game with the loss, but Morty and my dice rolls were not brilliant. So what can I say? It's a dice game, and sometimes they go in your favour and sometimes they don't. After that, there was I had a message from a friend that I played previously with. He was trying to put on a tri-service. So if you don't know what a tri-service tournament is, it's the Army, Navy and Air Force, and he wanted to put another service involved. He wanted to get a GW team, a veterans team, and an all-comers team for the tri, essentially. So he wanted 6 teams to turn up and take part in a big grand event. And he asked me to host a captain for the veterans team. I had no qualms because I was doing a team event at the time, so I knew the sort of criteria I needed to hit myself with. And we were told that because it was our first event after COVID, that it wasn't really structured in the same way as the ITC side. So we could bring as many Space Marine armies if we wanted, if we wanted to run 5 members. Was it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 team members. It was a 6-man event. So if we wanted to run 6 guys running all Stampede, Tyranid, Crusher, Stampede, we could if that's what we had. But generically most people have more Space Marine lists than anything else. So we went to that event. It was, let's just say, being asked to be a team captain for a team event and then trying to put a team together wasn't the easiest task in the world, especially when you're not pulling from your local community, when you're trying to grab veterans across the country to come and meet up in one location where you lead the team into playing a team tournament. Let's just say it had different challenges than I was expecting, but we pulled it off in the end. We had some great guys that jumped in at the last minute. A gentleman who was just come out of hospital, you know, a week before the event, or 2 weeks before the event, after having some surgery done, you know, but was able to jump on the team. So some amazing guys standing up for the veterans team itself. And we did really well. We did absolutely really well. We came third overall, losing out to the RAF and to the Navy. You know, we only lost one of our games, which was to the RAF on our last map pairings, but I think it was the Navy that beat us on points overall. So, you know, fair play to the Navy at that range of that game. You know, just peaking us out with a couple of I think it was one or two more wins than us in the point system. So great job there, and we came third. I was very pleased with the third position result with the tri-service, and hopefully, you never know, there might be something coming up again in the future for the veterans team to take part in. I'm going to keep my ears to the ground and see what comes out there, and I've got a lot of interest from a lot of people that I will try and keep in touch with and see if we can pull something together in the future again. So that was the sort of end of March, and we were coming into the April scene, and I hadn't really booked anything in April because of the half term, and I'd just done 2 veterans tournaments, which would take a lot of my time and effort to organise and take part in, and, you know, sort out accommodation and things like that. So I had a bit of a break in April. You'll probably see on the you know, on YouTube, there's like 2 weeks of gap where there's no videos, and that's just bad preparation for me, not producing enough to edit, to upload, to have stored, to release. So I'm hopefully going to get better at that in the future, and hopefully you'll see a little bit more content coming out at more of a regular basis. So the next stage was there to book another tournament. I had a friend of mine say there's a London GT. There's a GT in London run by the ITC again. So I've got a tournament coming up in June, first week in June, and then first week in May, 7th and 8th of May. Glasshammer Gaming, yeah, the Glasshammer guys are putting on another GT. Haven't been to Telford yet, Manny's home place, Glasshammer, the home of Manny Chima. So I'm hoping to go up and see their venue, take part in their GT. Hopefully, you know, do well at that. And this is the list I'm hoping to take. I haven't submitted it yet on the BCP app, so this isn't a 100%. This is what I'm taking. This is what I'm trying out, just purely because of the interactions I had with other lists, and you never know, it might change again. You know, with the new Armour Contempt, we're still playing around with the list and still playing around with the models, but I was really struggling to hit the secondary marks with some of my matchups. And the only reason I won was because of ball control more than anything, and the fact the army did really, really well at shooting. So, you know, I've been tinkering with the list. I've had a few lists that I've been running, playing around. Of course, I want to be the best Imperial Fist player in the world, and want to top the Space Marine ITC bracket. That's going to be a tricky one, as Death Watch fall into that, and all the other chapters, bar Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and Blood Angels and Dark Angels. They all have their own little league going on. So essentially I want to beat the other Space Marine chapters apart from those. And this is the list that I'm going to be taking to hopefully win the Glasshammer Gaming #8 GT. So the list comprises of changes from the last one. So we'll run through. I'm running 2 patrol detachments. The first patrol detachment is going to be led by my Baby Marine Chapter Master. He's got Thunderhammer as his war gear, and the Relic Bolter. He has the Warlord trait Armour Indomitable, which gives him a 4-up transhuman across the board every time. And then his additional Warlord trait with the Sentinels of Terror upgrade gives it, well, the CP, which allows me to take 2 Warlord traits. I've given him the Imperium sword for the extra attack. And then the Relic I've given him is Armour Indomitable. And Dominus, in Armour Indominus, which is a Space Marine one. It's a generic one. It gives him a 3-up invuln for once per phase, once per game. And then a 2-up save. Now this just eliminates that AP essentially. It gives him a little bit more, stick him in cover, and then there's a few other stratagems we can buff him up to keep him alive longer, which is fantastic. So essentially he's a supporting character at the Chapter Master upgrade. 145 points. It's a bit too expensive for my liking, but he does do the damage when needed to, if he doesn't die to obviously a Telemon, which is frustrating, or he bounces off it. The Imperium Sword gives him the extra strength through strength 9, so he does hurt tanks easier, or vehicles at toughness 9, toughness 8, so that's the bonus part there. And he gets a rerollable charge. So he's the flexibility of that support element at the back, and then allows you to punch into the mid board in the mid part of the game. So that's his elemental role. He's only got a few units to use his Chapter Master rerolls on. So the Centurions are out the game. So it's the Contemptors and the Intercessors, the Eradicators and himself. Or any of the other characters apart from the Inquisitor. But the idea is to be able to give that Chapter Master reroll at the precise moment which is going to have the biggest impact on the game. So turn 1, it's most likely going to be a Contemptor, which gives him the long range firepower if I'm going first. And then if I'm going second, it might be the Eradicators if the enemy's moved into range. And then turn 3, sort of like those 2 units will be turn 1, turn 2. And then turn 3 onward is generally either himself or the Intercessors, which allow me to use the Gene-wrought Might to do the additional mortal wounds on 6s. And then the 21 attacks that they get on the charge phase is pretty impressive, so they do the damage. That's his general role. Moving on then, that's him leading the 1 patrol detachment, and then we have the assault intercessors as a troop choice. No upgrade there, just all chainswords. Like I say, it's 21 attacks in combat. They're pretty fast. They affect the game in turn 3 onwards. I have 2 of them, so it allows me to bounce into that middle objective or that side objective on turn 1, turn 2, and then be able to hold the board a little bit more than I was struggling with. And no one really wants to charge them unless they know they can kill them, because the amount of attacks they dig out. So that's a bonus part for them. So that's the HQ, the troop choice, and then the elite slot is a Relic Contemptor and the 6-man aggressors. No, aggressors? 6-man Centurions. So this is a 6-man Centurion unit with all of the Hurricane Bolters, and they're the assault ones, so they've got the siege drills, plus the 2 flamers each. The initial thought was running in at 3, but the Custodians kill them really easily in combat at 3. So I went up to using as a 4-man unit, which survived a little bit longer. But then I thought, why not just do a whole 6-man unit? And this came prevalent when Gaz, a couple of days ago, Gaz Refractor charged in an AP5 weapon, and doing flat 4 damage, I think it was. Yeah, flat 4 damage. He actually only killed 4, and he, instead of killing the 7, due to the fact that I actually get a 6-up save against it, because the AP5 reduced down to AP4, 2-up save, and then +1, so they get a 5-up save. That was critical. And they feel no pain as well, which allowed me to save 2 of them. So he only killed 4 in the end, even though he got 7 through. I failed out of his 8 attacks. I failed 2 armor saves. He got 7 through, failed 2, so I was down to 5. So I would have wiped the unit or something like that. And I was able just to stay alive with the feel no pains, dropping the damage output across the board, which was amazing, which allowed me then to keep 2 on the board to fight back against Gaz, dropping him down a bracket, because dropping him down a bracket because you're going to do 4 at a time. And then the Apothecary was able to bring 1 back over the game. So I think a 6-man unit is more efficient with the Apothecary, the points, and the damage output. Okay, no AP to the weapon systems, but having, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 D6 strength 4 flamers at 12 inches, which they can advance, is crucial to the Horde clearance, but also to the Space Marine clearance as well. Now, the fact that they reduce AP, the Space Marines, AP1 is pretty much useless now, so just weight of fire. And if I get the AP on the Custodians, again, it's weight of fire. So they double tap the Custodians and the Space Marines now. And then, of course, it's any of those. I know I'm going to have an issue with the Eldar matchup. I shouldn't have an issue with the Tyranid matchup due to the resilience they have. It's the mortal wound output that they do is going to be the issue. Eldar and mortal wound output, and then the Tyranid with the mortal wound output. So that's the Centurions, though. They're in the army for running onto the middle objective or the back objective, depending on which game we're playing, and I spend 2 CP every turn on the shield and wavering, as long as one of them is touching the objective, or within the 3 inches of the objective, because the unit has to be within 3. And I have then the rest of them on a terrain feature for the cover. Essentially, this unit then gets an extra armor save. So yeah, add 1 to the saving throw. Now that isn't just in shooting, that's across the board, so in combat as well, as long as they're within 3 inches of an objective. But of course, that if you put someone on a piece of terrain, they get an extra armor save and the AP reduction. That means in the shooting phase, they're at a 0-up save with reduction in AP 1. So a -3 weapon, or AP3 weapon, should we say, only takes them to a 2-up save. And an AP4 weapon takes them to a 3-up save, and an AP5 weapon takes them to a 4-up save. So and with the 6-up feel no pain with the apothecary cutting around with them, they're very juicy. And then when someone charges them, because of the shield and wavering is 2 CP, you also get an extra attack in combat, and you still get the bonus for the armor save. So they're a 1-up save in combat when charged, for 2 CP. Now it's a lot of points. You have to then get it all to work in specific, in relativity to the game, and they have to be working efficiently. But most of the games that we play have that ability to do that. So yes, you know, they are very, very hard to take down. Toughness 5, 4 wounds, 2-up save. With a 5-inch move now, they've been upgraded. I didn't realise, because they lost a core, no one was running them. But I did have a check over the book, and I've been running them wrong as well. I've only been doing the 4-inch move, but they actually have a 5-inch move now, just the same as the Terminators. So they're on par with the movement of the Terminators. Are they on? And they're on par with the firepower that Terminators can put out with the Storm Bolters compared to the Hurricane Bolters. I think the difference is not having the core. So apart from the Apothecary, there's no effect on the unit from any other of my models, which is frustrating. The Librarian can with some psychic powers, but I just found over a few games with the Librarian that he wasn't pulling. I wasn't pulling the weight, but he just. I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable running the Librarian. He wasn't point efficient enough, so we'll move on from that. So that's the Centurions. That's the 2 elite selections. So then I took 2 heavy support, the Laser Destroyer, and I took the Gladiator as well. Sorry, the Laser Destroyer and the Eradicators in the patrol detachment there. So the Laser Destroyer is a rapier carrier with a heavy 3 laser las cannon at strength 10, you know, essentially. So it's a Laser Destroyer on a rapier carrier for 110 points. It's a heavy support slot. It hits on 3s, 3 shots, 36-inch range, strength 10, AP 4, which is massive. And then it's going to be D3 plus D3 damage. So minimum 4, minimum 5 on turn 1 if I can get to a vehicle. The idea is that because it's AP 4, the AP reduction on the Space Marines means they're getting a 6-up save. But on turn 1, no save acquired there. So hopefully, I say hopefully, I'll be honest, I never get my Super Doctrine to function the way it should do because of the terrain that we've got on the table. So everybody just hides and I don't get my Super Doctrine off. But you never know, that one chance that I do, it might come in prevalent. And not just that though, I could put him back in all doctrines and have that extra AP if I wanted to in the damage later on in the game. But he generally hits once, he generally hits twice, and then he generally wounds once, which creates a 4 wounds to a model at a critical point in the game. It is what it is. But it's the threat that they give, and the fact that they're quite easy to hide. They can sit in that side of the board. They're not absolutely destroyable, killable now with the AP reduction. So most of the time I'm getting a 5 or 6-up save, which is massive now, instead of a 6-up to no save against certain stuff. And the resilience that they have now with being toughness 5, 5 wounds, and just being able to screen the side of the boards, and have impact on the game when I need it, is the main key role for them. We've then got the other patrol detachment now, which is run by my loyal Tech Marine, Primaris Tech Marine, not upgraded, so he's not a Forge Master, unfortunately, and I think that maybe that's the way I go, but I'm just trying to squeeze 10 points out somewhere. Oh, I didn't mention the Eradicators. So 5-man Eradicator unit. They're just the melter rifles because I just needed them to be cheap. They sit on the back objective, hopefully in a piece of terrain or something like that, where I don't have to move them. I don't want to move them. I want to put them in a piece of terrain that has line of sight, that can be shot at turn 1. But if I go first, I'm going to use a stratagem called Bolstered Defences, and they're going to get an extra armor save for the rest of the game. As long as they sit there, they don't move at all, they will get an extra armor save. So essentially my Eradicators that are on a 2-up save in cover will get a 1-up save in cover. And then you've still got the Gravis Armor stratagem, Mark 10 stratagem, which allows you to give them an extra armor save if damage 1 comes in. So you can imagine that those damage 1 weapons with high AP, you could potentially have a 2-up save. So that's the plan. That's the idea of them. Get them to a 2-up save, even with AP 2 weapons, and then they survive. And have the Apothecary to run around if need to be to bring one back at a critical point in the game. But they also benefit from the Chapter Master for the rerolls. So they're the backfield holding objective. I know it sounds silly, but yeah, that's my ideal thought behind them. It's a 5-man unit, 15 wounds. They got a 2-up save in cover. They have Apothecary if they need it. They got the Chapter Master around them. They can use Feel No Pain, because even if the Apothecary moves away, I can still use Pain as a lesson, an Imperial Fist stratagem. And I can use Bolstered Defences, again, another Imperial Fist stratagem, which allows them just to be more resilient on the table. They're toughness 5, so they're not as easy as you'd imagine to be shot off. And then with the defensive of the Centurions in front of them, they're not easy to get to either to charge them. So that's the plan. Have them protect the Centurions, protect them turn 1, turn 2, and then push out with the Centurions. And then have them turn 3, turn 4, still be able to impact the game. So, Tech Marine. Warlord trait, I've upgraded them to have a Warlord trait, and that is the Warlord trait is Hand of Dawn. So it gives me an extra D3 command points at the beginning of the game. Out of 5 games or a 6-game round, I'll generate average of 2 per game. So it gives me a refund of at least an additional 1 CP over the 5 games. And that just makes him, what makes the game of my side of it more efficient, because I need the CP to get the Centurions to be more resilient on the table. Then his Relic is Eye of Hypnoth. I may drop this due to the fact that there isn't many units on the table now benefiting from it. Essentially, it's the Eradicators and the 2 Contemptors. But considering his role is to sit with the 2 Contemptors, I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it. We'll see how much that actually comes in effect. Turn 1, he's supposed to be around a Contemptor, 1 Contemptor, and then the Eradicators to be able to give that reroll once the Eradicators if necessary. But if not, he just toodle off with the Contemptors and does what he wants. But I have found the best unit to give the +1 to hit to on turn 1 is the Gladiator. So the Gladiator having the +1 to hit turns into hitting on 2s, and that alone generates an additional 4 to 5 hits, which are massive throughout the first turn if it's potentially needed. So yeah, his role is quite precise on the table, and my opponent can generally work out where he's going to be placed depending on the units around him. But having my Destroyer again going up against armor, Destroyer hitting on 2s is quite important at strength 10, and then potentially wounded on 3s to 2s depending on stratagems, is also a great asset to have. I've also got a 5-man intercessor unit, again the close combat ones, because they just have the potential for more scariness than anything else with the number of attacks. So yeah, and especially with AP2 as well, turn 3 onwards with the additional AP from the Space Marines tactical doctrines, they actually do more impact now against Space Marine units and Sisters obviously, and Chaos as well with the Heretic Astartes with the Armor Contempt. AP2 is where you want to be at or more to be able to give you the ability to take a worse, to give your enemy a worse armor save. So that's where they're there. So that's the troops. Elites then in this army has the Contemptor and the Apothecary. Unfortunately, yeah, I would have liked to have run him a little bit different. I would have liked to run the Baby Marine Apothecary, but I think for 5 points with the extra wound, the Primaris works a little bit better. So Contemptor, Volkite and missiles on both of them, because the missiles, I did try to take the 50 points off and spend it somewhere else. But the consistency, the consistencies from the Centurions with the missile, from the Contemptors with the missiles over the course of the game actually have a bigger impact than trying to spend 50 points somewhere else. So missiles are back on them. So the Primaris Apothecary is there primarily to help out the Centurions. He is upgraded to be a chapter apothecary, and he's been given the selfless healer warlord trait. Now that gives me the ability to heal 2 models per turn as long as they're in range, and revive a model as well to a unit up to full wounds. So the Centurion Sergeant or the Centurions themselves coming back with 4 wounds is huge, and that just makes the resilience of that Centurion unit again massive. But the healing of 2 units is huge as well. I had a vehicle the other day explode, do 21 mortal wounds all the way around my army and his, and I was able to recoup all those mortal wounds by turn 5 that was caused by the vehicle exploding. So, you know, just for the fact that the apothecary can move around and heal 2 people, you know, is huge. So yeah, made a massive difference, I think, on the game overall. Chapter Master surviving because he was healed later on in the game made a massive difference. So that's him. That's the elite section. So heavy support in this patrol detachment is another laser destroyer, and then the Gladiator Reaper at the back there. So the Gladiator Reaper has just got the Tempest Bolters and the twin Onslaught Gatling. Now, toughness 8, I haven't given him the extra point for the smoke launchers. I wish I did, but I have a plan for that, and the reason is, you know, he moves 10. So if he's in the right deployment zone and on the right space on the board, he can move on to an objective marker with a -1 to hit anyway from the terrain features that we play or generally play on. You know, there is generally a -1 terrain feature around for dense cover. So he then snooks in behind that and gets his -1 anyway to be shot back. And the toughness 8 isn't easy, but I like to call him my distraction Carnifex, an old terminology that we used to use in 8th edition. You'd bring your Carnifex just to be a distraction. You'd move him up the board so the enemy had to engage because, of course, the output damage from the Carnifex. And essentially, that's what he is. It's a very expensive 200 point, but so is the Carnifex, that you stick in front of the enemy to deal with. And then that soaks up a lot of firepower for the other units to survive later on in the game. Now, there are armies out there that will punch straight through the Gladiator, but with the Armor Contempt now, I'm going to guarantee most of the time a 6-up save, which is, I know people think that's silly, but just making that 1 6-up save out throughout like 3 or 4 rounds of shooting, and just having that constant 5 dice roll, make that 6, makes a difference in the resilience and the toughness of the model being on the board. So I've seen it already, him surviving on 1 wound when he shouldn't have because of the armor saves. So yeah, he's back in the list, he's doing great. So that's the list, that's all the units in its whole. I have a Inquisitor. Now the Inquisitor is just there to do a secondary. 60 points, haven't upgraded him to have the power sword, I needed the points somewhere else. So he's just got the Chainsword. I have upgraded him with a CP to get a Warlord trait and a Relic. That's amazing, 1 CP, you can just give him a Warlord trait and a Relic. The Relic is wounded on 2s, rerolling against anything that isn't essentially human. So any Xenos factions out there, I'll reroll to wound and hit, reroll hits and wound on 2s with the Relic. And then the Warlord trait is generate CP when your opponent uses a stratagem. And this just enables me to then be able to pull resources later on in the game if he's still around, and actually increase the chances of pulling off that shield and wavering on a unit that I at the later part of the game that's just going to keep them around longer. So you might be thinking, what does this army do in the way of secondaries? Okay, so in the secondary department, it gives away what's that, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 on the assassinate. It gives away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the bring it down points for the vehicles, and then I think I worked it out at 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 points for no prisoners. So it's not, you know, the best one to take from against me is the assassinate, and that's where I want you to do, because then I can hide at least 2 to 3 of my characters, because they are not, my characters are not engagement characters. You have to come to get them, and hopefully I can then deny you assassination points. And then the grind them down, and of course is different. But yeah, the bring it down is not high, and neither is the no prisoners. So They don't give away too many. And like I said, Assassinate is the biggest, but if they take that, it's almost like a trap for them. It doesn't max them out, and I can potentially hide a couple of those, so they denied them. So essentially what I tried to build is a list to take to the last. I know Space Marines don't do that very well. So the Eradicators, the Centurions, and one of the Contemptors. Now 195 points for the Reaper, Gladiator, and it's 195 points for both of my Contemptors. So I just choose one of the Contemptors to be to my last. With the 5 of Pin Von and the Armour Contempt, with a Tech Marine buy, you have to dedicate a lot of firepower to actually kill it. And I've seen it survives pretty much everything in combat with the reduction in damage. You know, apart from Gazgul Thraka, yeah, he kills one. But there are certain units that they survive far more resiliently against in combat than you'd expect. Terminators with Power Fists, even all of the Sanguinary Guard sort of models that they survive. They do survive a Telemon. It sounds silly, but the flat 4 damage then turns to 3 with the 5 Pin Von. On average, you're saving 2 or 1. They're only getting, on average, 5 attacks. So just saving that 1 or 2 with a reroll on the 5 of Pin Von does keep the Contemptor alive, and you fall back then, and then you get a chance to either do something. I don't generally, I've moved away from taking over moments because of the fallback part of the stratagem, the part of the movement, and the part of the army that needs to fall back to give the other army a chance to shoot at whatever their enemy is shooting at. So I will generally now take, grind them down to the last, or grind them down in the no mercy, no respite. No prisoners is also a good one for those Tau players out there. Bring it down if they've got the vehicles. But I'll try and stay away from Purge the Enemy, because it's it's one of those that the enemy your opponent can always play around. But I've also bought the Warpcraft now, which allows me to take Psychic Interrogation, and on average, I'm averaging between 9. I say average. You've seen a couple of battle reports, and I haven't been doing that. But when I'm not on the channel, it's averaging between 9 and 15. So. Yeah, I say 9 and 15, so the average is 12. The worst case is 9, and then the best case is 15. So the Inquisition himself, the Inquisitor, has been doing an amazing job. Raise the Banner is still probably the best secondary in the Shadow operation for the list build, with the 2 Intercessor units that are able to put the banners up and then move away or defend them. I still haven't really mastered Investigate Signals, and that's still a struggle. And then the Battlefield Supremacy, I pretty much ignore, because I could do Stranglehold, but if I'm taking Stranglehold, it pushes me into using more units than I want to spread out on the table, and it only really affects the game if I'm winning, and it's more of a secondary that promotes a winning atmosphere to the game. So that's what it's doing. It's taking to the last with the Centurions, the Eradicators, and the Contemptor. I'm taking Psychic Interrogation. That gives me 2 really strong secondaries, and then it's based on the terrain, the opponents, the objectives and the mission for the third. I was struggling with only taking 1 guaranteed, and that guarantee was always Oath Moments, because it was like, oh, it's a given. But now I've moved away from taking Oath Moments as always a given. The army is developed, it's more structured on the table. It actually functions, in my opinion, a little bit more reliable, and I'm hitting that 60 to 70 point mark pretty much more reliably now. So it's just then negating that 30 point mark from my opponent to try and just alleviate to the 76 point mark to actually win the game. This army does not take 100 points from your opponent, but what it will do is you'll give yourself the opportunity in every game you play to beat the opponent still. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to put an army on the table and not lose to my secondaries, and then affect the game in a way where I can still pull it out of the bag later on. I hope you enjoyed it. I've got the Glasshammer gaming coming up in a week or so, and I'll hopefully do more. I've got a couple of games lined up. I've got one coming up in a week or so, which is going to be 2 of my fellow guys from the local gaming club that are going to come down, and we're going to see their 2 armies clash. Hopefully that will be White Scars and Tyranids, so look out for that. We're going to see the close combat aspect of Space Marines taking on the close combat aspect of NIDS, and we'll see how that turns out. That's going to be a great game lined up. We've got a rematch to the channel. We've got a classic. I think it was the first game we uploaded, and that's going to be the Blood Angels of Nyx to my Imperial Fists, and we're going to see the clash of the close combat units, because I'm now running more close combat units than shooties, and people will be asking why am I not running more bolters. Because of the lack of the AP now across the Space Marine armies, you know, the reduction in AP across the board. If you're going to take bolt rifles, you need to be running at least 20 of them with an apothecary, so it just doesn't, you know, for 400 points I'd rather slimline and take something more, because they don't hit in combat, so they only do one phase. The bolters only do one phase, and that's your shooting, and they're not massively good at that anymore. So yeah I've got a lot of bolter shots though still with the Centurions. That's 6 shots per guy at 24, so what's that, 36, and then 72 at half range. That's still a lot of bolters to put down the range, still a lot of bolters to put out there, and they just overall are not great anymore. You know, the exploding sixes, if I know it sounds silly, but I don't think Imperial Fists have done well in the last year. People say that, well, I know people are saying it, and they're not being played at tournaments in this scene that we see a lot of others. We can all understand that they're not competitive at the top lists, so we're not going to see like the Manny Chima's taking them, the Vic VJs. You know, we're not going to see Brad Chester and the guys over in the Art of War playing them, because they just don't compete at the top level as everybody else. But I love them. So I'm going to make them work, and I'm going to play them to my heart. I'm going to play them to the best of my ability. I'm going to give every opponent that I ever play a great game, because that's the idea of Warhammer, is to have that great game on the table with your opponent. So we'll leave it there. Like I said, a couple of more tournaments coming up, and hopefully I'll do more. And hopefully this is the list that I take. If anything changes, I'll give you an update. But yeah, this is it so far. I think this is going to be it. I think it's going to be great, and it does have impact on the game. So catch you in another one. Take care. Bye bye.